The leaks were right, and also the leaks were wrong. There is so much to talk about, Matt, with this Apple March 8th event that just wrapped up. We will have our full breakdown on the podcast this week, coming later this week to a podcast player or a YouTube channel near you. But for now, Matt and I wanted to give our concise sort of quick breakdowns of what happened at this event. So before we jump in, Matt, we'll keep it brief. Give me your 3-second, well, let's do 30 second. Give me your 30-second rating of today's Apple event.
Well, I think the rating on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say is it's like an 8. It's pretty good. We were watching the event, and as we got the things that we were expecting, we're like, okay, fine. And then we took a hard left turn. Still things we were expecting, but I mean, it's crazy. What about you? What's your rating for this event? I give it a solid 8. It was exciting, but nothing blew me away, if that makes sense.
It's so hard because this event did a 180 from what it was a week ago, because we were, well, also, hold on, I'll get to another point in a second, but yes, did a 180. There were many leaks and rumors about what it was going to be. iPhone SE, iPad Air, all that stuff made sense. And then like 2 to 3 days before the event, everything changed and we got a lot of cool leaks and rumors that did decide to be true, which we'll get into. And also, I just want to say for the record, and I will bring this up tomorrow, that it was right here last week that we discussed a display being launched at the event as our sort of wild card. We said you'd heard it here first, and we recorded that last Wednesday before. I think that was even before all the 9 to 5 Mac stuff.
Because 9 to 5 reported that on the 4th. So now that's got to be before, right? Now I got to get my calendar up.
That was what, Friday?
Friday, but we recorded on Wednesday. So technically it came out the same day, so it probably looked like we did it at the same time, but no, we did it on Wednesday.
No, we were early. We called it. So anyways, let's just get the boring stuff out of the way. Well, not boring, but relatively speaking.
No, it's boring.
iPhone SE 3. So like we basically, the leaks were true. It's,
like no surprises with this one. Yeah.
Same design as the iPhone 8. Same Touch ID. They said there was a better camera, but they didn't elaborate as to what really changed with the camera.
It was just the software. So the A15 allows Smart HDR4 and better video, that kind of thing. Nothing in the hardware. It's still the 12-megapixel sensor.
And speaking of A15, of course, there is now the A15 Bionic processor inside of the iPhone SE. So if you want sort of the latest and greatest Apple Silicon, then you have that now in the lower cost iPhone. It's got 5G. It's got tougher glass, which I was talking to you about this during the event. Weird they didn't say ceramic shield. Maybe this is just sort of like a nomenclature thing, but I thought if it was ceramic shield, they would have said ceramic shield. They just said tougher glass. And even in like that multi-slide at the end, they just said tougher glass.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because it said, and I'm looking on the website right now, and it still just says, thanks to durable design and the toughest glass in a smartphone. But when they announced it, they said it's the same glass as the iPhone 13, which has ceramic shield. So I'm not sure what's up with that. They did say that it's also on the back, which I don't think ceramic shield is on the back of the iPhone 13. So maybe they just didn't want to, I don't know, maybe it has something to do with that.
And then, of course, the final sort of, I don't want to say the nail in the coffin, but a very weird, very abnormal move for Apple is they raised the price.
Yep.
So the iPhone SE, the current one, version 3, also has 5G, by the way, is now $429. That's $29 more than the outgoing model, which is really weird as to why Apple raised the price. Maybe we can elaborate this more tomorrow, but any kind of initial thoughts?
I mean, obviously inflation, the state of the world right now is not, let's say, great. There's a lot of things going on, so that makes sense. But it's also, I mean, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, but it's also the lowest end product. So like, why not raise the higher end products? Because then it's you can make up the cost easier, I think, than having to almost punish the lowest end. I don't know. We'll talk about that more later, but that's my only guess is that inflation hit. That's all I can think.
Now, iPad Air, this was an interesting change here with this new model. So as we expected, center stage tech is there. We got some like slightly tweaked colors, 5G in there as well, but not A15 Bionic going inside this thing, but the M1. Matt, why the M1 inside of the iPad Air?
So when they announced this, I thought for sure this is the nail in the coffin to the M1 chip as we know it, because now it is making its way down to the lower end computers, or I guess iPads in this sense. So the iPad Pro has the M1. Now it's going to be in the iPad Air, which means the iPad Pro will get the M2 and the M2 will now be announced. But as we'll talk about in a second, that didn't happen. So now the iPad Air and the iPad Pro have the exact same chip. And at least as of now, an M2 chip does not exist. So for the foreseeable future, they have the exact same processor. That is an interesting move. I mean, for the value of it, it's unlike the iPhone SE3, they did not raise the price of the iPad Air, so it's the same price as before, but you're getting the M1 processor, so that is actually nice. Nothing else really changed, like you said, the same display, same Touch ID. There are some new colors, but they're kind of just refinements. They're not a huge difference. And then what else? What am I missing? It got the center stage camera, like you mentioned, and even though it has the M1 chip, it did not get Thunderbolt, so that is one difference from the iPad Pro.
Right.
So it only has faster, I think there's a 2 times faster USB-C speed, so you're still getting a faster port, but it's not Thunderbolt, even though the M1 supports it. But that's really it. I mean, that's the changes that they made. Yeah, interesting. I mean, going forward to the other events is when we're really going to see what the M chip inside these iPads has to do with anything. But as of now, no reason. Well, we said this right after the event ended, and we were talking about it. Was at this point, absolutely no reason to get the 11-inch iPad Pro. I think way better to save your money, and unless you want the mini LED display and the bigger display, save your money, go for the iPad Air. But again, we'll cover that more in detail tomorrow.
Yeah, I have like so much to say about this, but I'm gonna hold my tongue until tomorrow. Interesting stuff. By the way,
we keep saying tomorrow, but we're Friday. But
the episode we're gonna record tomorrow. You guys will get it later this week. And also, I guess actually a good time to mention, I forgot in the beginning. If you guys have questions, comments, your feedback on this Apple event, let us know. Text the Apple Circle hotline 949-354-3508. You can tweet us. We're the Apple Circle on Twitter. You can comment on this YouTube video. We'll actually pull questions from this video. So if you do have questions or feedback, let us know. But that leads us nicely, Matt, into the Mac section of the event.
Yeah.
Yep. And first, the introduction. The Apple loves to do the chip introduction first, then what it's going to go into. So we got the more Max version of the M1 Max. So there was the M1, M1 Pro, M1 Max, and I should say we both have M1 Max MacBook Pros. It's a mouthful, that are crazy powerful. I think you can agree as well that it flies through everything that I'm able to throw at it.
Yep, I mentioned this a few episodes back, but I was editing a project with ProRes from a 4K Blackmagic, then also from a Pocket with the same ProRes, and then C70 and R5, which are H.265, and no stutters, no hiccups, no transcoding or anything. It just works perfectly. So yeah, these are crazy powerful chips already, but like you said, I mean, we got an even better version of this chip, which, I mean, this was probably the biggest surprise of the whole day, because we got rumors of the Max and the display, which we're going to talk about more, but we didn't really hear anything about this updated Mac or Mac chip. So yeah, the M1 Ultra.
What's so interesting too about this is that we had heard rumors about a chip like this that's basically two M1 Max chips put together, but we had heard that it was being reserved for the Mac Pro.
Yep.
That's not what happened. This is now the M1 Ultra, which, I mean, they listed, I think it's the specs rather, 20-core CPU, 64-core GPU, supports up to 128 gigs of unified memory. Just a beastly chip that I can only imagine. I know what the M1 Max does, and I'm impressed. I cannot imagine the performance of an M1 Ultra. That's going to be insane.
I know. Yeah, it's tough to imagine, only because, you know, we're, like you said, we're using these chips already. And I don't know about you, but very, very rarely do I ever get like a stutter or a beach ball or something like that. And when I do, it's almost like you could tell it's just because the app that I'm using kind of sucks. It's not because the computer can't handle it. Yeah, so it's crazy how powerful this is. We're going to have to see what that is actually like to use. But luckily, we don't have to wait that long for that, because it is being shipped in the Mac Studio. So this, I'm going to take credit for this. I did not think the idea of a Mac Mini Pro made any sense, because it's like the cheapest computer, but you're putting the highest in at the time, and according to the rumors, the highest in chip inside. So that's going to raise the price. And then you're also going to have colors of the Mac Mini with the M2 chip, but you're also going to have the Pro version. It was too messy. So I think I'm going to just say it. I think I was right. The Mac Studio is what we were all hearing rumors about, because obviously, I mean, it looks like a Mac Mini, just kind of chunked up a little bit. But yeah, what are your thoughts initially on this computer? I
have so many questions on where the Mac Mini goes from here, because with this now in the lineup, I keep saying we'll get into it in the later episode, but it kind of really does shift the Apple Mac lineup now moving forward. But keeping things simple, Mac Studio, Wow. It's what we've been talking about for months. It's a more maxed out version of the Mac Mini. It's got all the ports you'd want. It's got like what,
Tons of ports.
Thunderbolt 4 ports on the back, HDMI, 10 gig Ethernet, high fidelity, high impedance. Audio port, some more on the front. You've got some crazy powerful silicon inside, and it's just like this big like aluminum cube that sits on your desk. I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't think I'm going to buy it for a reason I'll get into in the full episode, but I love the idea of it. Whew, it looks great.
Yeah, no, this is a very nice surprise. We got the leak of this from Luke Miani like the day before. Well, I guess technically 9 to 5, like we mentioned, 9 to 5 broke this on the 4th of March, so like a week ago. Well, not even a week ago, like 4 or 5 days ago. And then Luke actually showed us what these things were going to look like, and they're spot on. So whoever his source was perfect. Yeah, I'm excited for this. There's a lot that goes into it. But I think equally as exciting, but also semi-confusing and kind of disappointing is what they announced alongside it, which is the Studio Display. So Apple is loving to... Is there a year-over-year update for displays that Apple hasn't changed the name? Maybe they have. I think the original Cinema displays stayed. They changed, but stayed with the same name, and I think the Thunderbolt display did. But point being, like, they love to just switch up the names on the displays for some reason. But yeah, the Studio Display.
They love to reuse names. Like MagSafe has had multiple incarnations. EyeSight has had
Cinema
multiple incarnations.
Yeah.
There was Cinema Display. Wasn't there a studio version of the Cinema Display, or didn't they have a Studio Display way back when?
Let me look.
I don't know, but anyways, while Matt's looking that up, here's sort of the high-level spec sheet. 27 inches, 5K display, not mini LED. So if you were waiting for that.
Cutting in here. You're right. That square, like, plastic one that has the feet on it, that is a Studio Display. Huh. Look at me not being an Apple know-it-all. I did not know that. So there you go. It did exist before, so now they brought it back.
27-inch, 5K, supports True Tone, 600 nits of brightness, not mini LED. Matt, I want to really defer to you because you were the one that really, really wanted a alternative to the crazy expensive Pro Display XDR. As someone who's been waiting for this, what are your sort of initial thoughts on a now much more affordable, relatively speaking, Apple display?
Yeah, this is a tough one because from a hardware perspective and a design perspective, I think this is great. This is exactly what I was wanting. I love the way it looks. I think the design is great. Another thing you forgot to mention was that it has an A13 chip inside, which is what's powering the audio system with spatial audio support, and the camera, which has center stage, which is nice that it's coming to the Mac. I'm glad that's happening. So like as a full package, it's nice. But I mean, at this point, the display is not that different than like what I have right now in terms of quality. The reason I would want to upgrade my display is because I want better quality, which is what the Pro Display XDR would do. This, I have a BenQ 27-inch monitor, which is Thunderbolt 3. It's 4K, not 5K, granted, but that is a very minor difference in my opinion. It's also, it's either 500 or 600 nits compared to the 600 of the Studio Display, so it's not that different there either. So it's like, what am I needing this display for? The original goal was that I wanted a more affordable version of the XDR, and I would say this is not that. This seems like a entry level is maybe a little too harsh for a word, but like a lower end, for Apple at least, a lower end display, whereas I could easily see a world where the Pro Display XDR 2 has a 120 hertz mini LED display with a ton of backlight dimming zones, all that great stuff. And then you have a middle one, which is the Pro Display XDR we currently have with maybe a slightly different enclosure. But, now that it's been out for a while, the prices are coming down. So it's kind of in the middle, maybe at that $3,000 range. Still a lot, but, for Apple, middle range. And then you have this here at the bottom for everyone else who just needs a monitor and wants something really good, but it's not, you don't have to pay $6,000 for it. So I'm picking one up just to try out because obviously I've been wanting this for so long, but we'll see if I actually keep it.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts because I would love to upgrade displays, but I have a 30-inch BenQ now. That's a decent monitor. If I was going to upgrade, I don't really want to regress. I want the Pro Display XDR. I want that, like, what is it, a 32-inch high-res display. I guess the designs are similar with the Studio Display and the Pro Display, which is nice to see. Yeah. But man, it's like if you're already $1,500 in, I guess the price difference still is what, $4,500, so it's still big. Kind of a lot. I think we were talking too that for that price, for let's say $6,000, you could buy the M1 Ultra, so the highest end base model of the Mac Studio with a Studio Display and still have money left over, or buy the M1 Max version and get 2 displays and have money left over. So some price considerations there to be made. But now, yes, Apple is making that display available to us very soon. If you have been waiting for a nice, more affordable 27-inch display, that's going to be coming very soon. And is there anything else? I can think of a couple things that we thought were going to be there that weren't there.
The iPhone got a green color.
Oh, that's
so
right.
Happened.
Yes. I mean, why would you see? Here's the problem. Unless you love the color green, I get it. But if you understand that we are 6 months away from the 14, so why would you buy a 13 now? So
yeah, I guess if you're on that, if your phone just breaks and then you got to go get a new one, that's the only reason why I would say buy one right now. But yeah, that's tough. I guess real quick, we'll just mention what we didn't get, and we'll go into more detail of this because of what happened, why this happened. Sorry, let me wake up my camera as it falls asleep. Basically, we were expecting an M2 chip with a updated MacBook Pro base model and a Mac Mini and this Pro variant, which obviously ended up being the Mac Studio. So we did not get any new silicon in terms of new generation. We got the M1 Ultra, obviously, but it's not the M2 version. It's still an M1. So we didn't get that. We didn't get an update to the base MacBook Pro, and we didn't get a Mac Mini. So that was all wrong. I mean, that was kind of surprising, to be honest.
We'll talk about this more tomorrow, but I had jumped off to record and I missed the last line where apparently one of the Apple execs said that the last Mac to transition to Apple Silicon was the Mac Pro, and now people are freaking out because where's the iMac Pro? Is that in jeopardy? I have got some thoughts about that. We'll talk about that more later on, but something to point out that I definitely think that the Mac lineup now is great, but it's going to be very interesting how Apple sort of treads these waters, because the fate of the Mac Mini and the iMac Pro, I think, are very up in the air right now. I don't know if they make sense to keep around given what we have now with Mac Studio and some other stuff. So we'll get into that, but we want to keep this brief for you guys. I guess final thoughts. I thought it was a great event. I thought it was exciting. I thought that it was really cool that Apple sort of threw us a curveball, and they continue to show us their silicon is unmatched and this Mac Studio looks awesome. Not great if you were hoping for an iPad Air or iPhone SE. Those are sort of minor updates, but at least some of those rumors were false, and the event was more exciting than we originally thought. So
yeah, we didn't know every single thing going in, and that is all I really want. Give us some surprises that aren't Apple TV, and I'll be happy, which they did talk about for like 5 seconds. But yeah, that is the March 8th, what is it called? Peak Performance event. And now we completely understand what they meant by that, because this is peak performance. And like you said, they mentioned that the Mac Pro is the last one, and they're going to save that for later. And I can only imagine what they're going to do with that. So lots of stuff to dissect, lots of stuff to go over. It was a good event. So we will see you in the full episode of the Apple Circle podcast, which releases the same time, Friday. We'll be recording it tomorrow, like we said. That's why we keep saying tomorrow. But we will see you there, here on YouTube and in the podcast.
So much to talk about. I'm so excited. Matt, I'll talk to you soon. And guys listening and watching, we'll see you soon as well.